What's going on, guys? It's Gale here, welcoming you to another build video for Dragon Age 2. Today the build is for Blood Mage. This build never stops using spells and controls the battlefield with powerful utility. As always with my build videos, there will be a link in the description to a Google Sheet, or just pause the video here for full details on leveling and equipment for the build. The core abilities we will need for the early game that will last us throughout the entire game are Chain Lightning, Spirit Bolt, and Winter's Grasp. Chain Lightning is our best ability for the early game. It deals great damage, AoE, and momentarily paralyzes all enemies struck by the attack. Once you transition into the mid-game with this build, save Chain Lightning for your warrior staggers to deal much more burst damage to the staggered target. Spirit Bolt is a very low cooldown spammable spell that deals decent damage. Because we want to avoid AoE on Nightmare, this spell works wonders on giving us a consistent ability to use. It also gives us a different damage type, which is very important for Nightmare difficulty, where enemies are resistant to certain damages. The last core ability we will have is Winter's Grasp. This ability is not only useful utility in slowing enemies and their attack speed, but it's also a crucial ability versus the Qunari, who are very weak to ice but very resistant to nearly everything else. Later in the game, this ability will be used to set up cross-class combos for big damage, just like with Chain Lightning. The last early ability I wanted to mention is my guy Dog. He's a very useful aggro taker in the early game and gives us some breathing room. One of the main things in a Mage Nightmare playthrough is that you will need to carry multiple staff weapons around on you. Enemies on Nightmare are very resistant to certain damage types, and you will need to switch around your staffs often to accommodate. For example, always use ice staffs on Qunari. The core specialization of this build is Blood Mage. Not only is it thematically very cool, but personally I believe it's the strongest mage spec in the entirety of Dragon Age 2. Because we will be heavily investing in Constitution, we will have an endless amount of spells and will easily be able to heal up through abilities mentioned later. I like to start battles with Blood Magic mode off and use my initial mana for my first rotation or two of spells. As the fight progresses and I start running low on mana, I'll switch over to Blood Magic to give me a second wind of spells and cast my powerful Blood Mage abilities. With the Blood Mage specialization comes the spell Hemorrhage. This spell is one of the better mage spells in the entire game, dealing solid damage in a very large AoE, all while keeping the enemies paralyzed for a good duration. Once this spell is upgraded, it will also be used to trigger a cross-class combo with enemies that the warrior has staggered. With Blood Magic comes another core ability, Grave Robber. Whether you are taking chip damage or using your health to cast spells with Blood Magic, this spell will bring you right back to full health, if you use it in the correct situations. This spell can also just be used offensively to deal damage to living targets when it is upgraded. The last ability I wanted to mention is Haste. In Dragon Age 2, this ability is incredibly powerful, making your whole party attack faster and have smoother feeling abilities. You should always have an Anders in the party who has this ability, especially on Nightmare. But the only thing better than having one haste in the party is two hastes. In this build we won't be acquiring haste for a while, but it will feel great when we do. An overview of all of the best in slot armor for this build. As always, where exactly to find the gear will be in the Google link in the description. Thank you all for watching.